So this past Saturday during a Blue Jays game, two animal rights activists from the group Direct Action Everywhere decided to interrupt the game to display a banner that read, "Animal Liberation Now." Now before I go on, I want to start off by saying that I'm no animal rights activist and I have no interest in becoming one. However, I'm interested in learning why these individuals felt so compelled as to interrupt a national baseball game to bring awareness to their cause. I consider myself relatively open-minded. My initial thoughts concerning animal rights has always been, well, sure, we're cruel to animals, but they're just animals. I honestly don't care what happens to them prior to arriving on my barbecue. However, seeing these two activists, I decided to dig a bit deeper. I happen to have an ethics textbook I used in university, and there just so happens to be a chapter dedicated to this very topic. So I read the introduction, and I can honestly say it's in a small way persuaded me to care just a bit. I'll explain why only just a bit towards the end. The first thing I'd imagine pops into people's heads when they hear about animal rights activism is something along the lines of, they're just animals. In other words, they're not people, so we shouldn't care. The first thing the introduction in this book mentions is that no one can really answer with 100% certainty exactly what a person is in its relation to this issue. Does one's capacity to feel pain make you a person? Or your capacity to use language? Or your ability to think abstractly and rationally, or to sense time? Having read this, I thought to myself, wow, these are actually really good questions I hadn't thought of before, at least in relation to this issue. I'm going to ignore the soul issue because I honestly don't know much about that. In terms of feeling pain and using language, though, I think most people know that and many animals are capable of both. However, to think abstractly and rationally, to sense time, probably not, or at least so I thought. Browsing the group's website, I found a link to their blog, an article of which went on to describe how one study observed how a cow learned to solve a puzzle involving buttons, to open a gate, and how a chimp in a zoo collected stones and hid them so as to later use them to throw at visitors. So it's clear, having now educated myself a bit on the issue, that at the very least, some animals have a limited personhood comparable to that of humans. I think the key word there is limited, but let's progress with that line of thought. Even if you accepted that it is only a very limited personhood for any given animal, should we have any concern for their well-being as such? I think the best way to illustrate this is through this equation here. Is the life of one human equivalent to that of an animal? I think most of us would say no, of course not. Where things get interesting is your response to the next question. Is the life of one human equivalent to 1,000 animals? My honest answer is still no. However, I'll admit my answer was very slightly, reluctantly found. I think that's indicative of feeling some degree of empathy towards what I now regard as personhood amongst animals. Let's say for the argument I still don't care. Relevant to the topic, I think, is not just our views toward animals in regards to personhood, but also very practical ones as well. Apparently, it is often the case that more food and other resources are being used to feed animals in the course of their production than is produced, leading to potentially another moral concern in light of the presence of human starvation and inequality in the world. So at this point, I'm inclined to identify with their cause, but still don't. Why? For a couple of reasons. Firstly, this particular group seems to attribute animals with either full or near full personhood, which I think is a bit of a stretch. If you check out their YouTube channel, the first video you see evoked, for me at least, mixed feelings. You hear the screams of animals being tortured. It was pretty harrowing. I wasn't comfortable with it, and I can honestly say I had no idea it was that bad. What bothered me, though, was the various language used throughout the video that I think, quite frankly, will do more harm than good to their cause. They refer to the younger animals as kids, and after displaying a few admittedly alarming statistics, call it genocide. They go on to call animal domestication for the past 10,000 years enslavement. In regards to the use of the word kids and genocide, I think it's reasonable to assume that even after a small percentage of the population that these activists are hoping to recruit with their campaign, will likely also feel that the value of a human child is more valuable than that of, say, a chicken. So to put them on the same level through their use of language, even if you genuinely believe that, I can't imagine wouldn't have a negative effect on their cause. It just becomes more difficult to take them seriously. in regards to the enslavement, well, if we credit Jared Diamond with anything that even, like, if we give Jared Diamond any credit, it's the domestication of animals that led to modern civilization. So I really don't think it's reasonable to call domestication of animals 10,000 years ago enslavement. I think that was necessary. I want to finish up by saying that despite all that, I'm glad these activists interrupted the Jays game. I really don't care too much for their cause as much as they no doubt think I should. However, there is one benefit mentioned in this textbook that I have not yet brought up. It has been argued that animals should have their rights expanded so as to foster a disposition of kindness and consideration in society. But I don't doubt this can also... I'd like to dig deeper into that argument, and perhaps I will at a later date. However, I'm inclined to think that this is a good reason. I think there are better ways to foster such a disposition, but I don't doubt that this can also play a significant role towards progress in that respect. I'm a concerned Canadian. If you like this video, don't hesitate to share it on social media, and feel free to follow me on Facebook and Twitter.